Hello, I'm John Maloney. You can call me Professor John Maloney. I have a YouTube site. It is youtube.com/Professor John Maloney. Okay, I recommend that you go to that site, bookmark me, or place me in your favorites, and let me have any comments you might have on any of the videos I put up. I just started my site on May the 1st of 2012. Over the course of the next few months, my plan is to put up dozens of recordings that will help people that are learning either Microsoft Office applications, especially Excel and Microsoft Access, but also perhaps some on Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint, and especially on Visual Studio 2010. That's also a Microsoft product, and I'll be doing some programming in VB.NET, in C#.NET, and perhaps in C++.NET as part of this series. So youtube.com/Professor John Maloney. This particular application, I'm going to try to limit the recording to less than 10 minutes, so I'll be speaking fast. It's only going to have a few text boxes on the form, and again, it's VB.NET 2010, and a clear button. I'm not even going to put an exit button on it. I just coded an exit button application, and we'll upload that file to my YouTube channel so that you can know that you can exit not just via me.close, but you can also use dialog results. If you want to know how that one works, look up that video on my site, and it'll be great for you. This clear is not going to clear the old-fashioned way, so to speak. I'm going to be using a for each next loop, and I'm going to be declaring a variable which represents any control on the form. And then I'm going to specifically say if the control happens to be a text box, then clear them out. It's much better than typing textbox1.clear, textbox2.text equals double quotes, or textbox3.text equals string.empty, which are three other ways of clearing things out. But in those ways, what you have to do is each text box has to be cleared individually. I'm doing this through a loop. Okay, so I'm going to start up Visual Studio 2010. Mine's professional. If you need to get Visual Studio, you can get an Express edition for free from the Microsoft site. If you don't know how to get it that way, just go to Google or Bing and type VB.NET 2010 Express, EXPRESS, and you'll find a free download for it. Okay, all right, so I'm creating a new project. The new project is, I'm going to call it Clear, a clear button using for each next loop. Okay, that's what it's going to be. And I'm going to say OK. It'll create it in my YouTube channels area, and that's going to be good enough for me. I'm going to make the form large for now. Okay, I'll make it smaller after. I'm going to go to my toolbox, and I'm going to just put, I'll say 3 text boxes. Okay, and I'm only putting one button, a clear button. Okay. So I just double-clicked on text box 3 times and double-click on button. When you then go away from your toolbox, the tools that you've added, otherwise called controls, are on your application. Okay? I'm putting the text boxes so that text box 1 is on top, text box 2 is in the middle, and text box 3 is underneath, and then the button just underneath them. Okay? I'm going to make them a little further apart though, because I'm going to make the text very large so that you guys can see what's happening, and it's hard to see in using Panopto, but I think it'll come out well. Okay. All right, so I'm going to select my 3 text boxes by just clicking to the left and then dragging down and to the right so that they're all selected. And now I want to just make the font larger. So I'm going to go to my properties, click on my font, and then click on the ellipsis dots, and I'm going to make them a 20 so that you can see whatever I type into those. Okay? All right, I'm not going to name them just for this one because I want us to understand only how the clear works. All right, so I've got these things. Actually, I'll make them slightly wider just in case we want to, you might want to type a little more than just one word in it or whatever. I'm also going to make the button large. Okay, and I'm only doing this so that with my Panopto you can still hopefully see it. So I'll make this font large as well. Okay, make it a 20 and say OK. I'm going to put the text property off the button. So I single click on the button, scroll down to text, double click, and I'm going to type ampersand CLEAR. Okay, the ampersand is you click the shift key and number 7, and that's the ampersand. And by doing an ampersand, you get an underscore under the letter that you precede it with the ampersand code. So shift and number 7 gives you the ampersand. Okay? And then LEAR, you enter, and the C will be underscored. So now if the user doesn't want to specifically click on the clear button, if he or she would rather use the shortcut keys, they can do Alt-C, and Alt-C will clear the application. Okay? I want to name this button Clear Button. Never leave the default names in Visual Studio, okay? Because you'll never understand what it is later on. Because if you put three forms, if you put 3 text boxes, you have text box 1, text box 2, text box 3. If you put 3 buttons, you have button 1, button 2, button 3. Once you double click them, button 1 or button 2 or button 3 doesn't help you. If you rename the button to Clear Button or Calculate Button or Exit Button or View Database Button or whatever, you know, it makes more sense. All right. So now I'm going to double click the button and I'm going to do my code. Okay. I'm not going to explain what the click event here is doing. I did that in my exit button application. So if you want to see that, you can just go to, again, youtube.com, okay, / Professor John Maloney, and just click on my exit application and where I explained what the procedures do. Now here I'm going to start with a comment again. A comment is started with an apostrophe. So I type the apostrophe and I say, this clear button clears all text boxes by using a for each next loop. Okay? Now I'm going to start with a dimension. So I dim something to represent a control. I'm going to say CTRL, which is basically short for the word control. So dim CTRL as a control. And I'm going to put another comment. This declares an object reference for any control on the form. Okay? But now I'm going to say for each control, where I spell CTRL, and VisualBasic.net, all the languages in Visual Studio use IntelliSense. So once you get something close to what you've got, you know, like CT as an example, brings up CTRL because that's what I typed. So for each control in controls, in other words, for each control out of all the controls on your form, and once you enter, a next is automatically created for you because it's a for each next loop. And then within it, I have to do my code. So then I want to say if. So if is a condition. If type off, where it's one word, type off. CTRL, which is my variable instance. If type of control is text box. Okay? So if it's a text box, CTRL dot, again I get IntelliSense, I want text, so once I do TE, I can see text, I just hit my space bar, control.text equals double quotes. What this will do is then set up the clear for all of those controls. Okay? Now, I'm going to go back to the form. Actually, first I'm going to copy this code in case you can't see it here, and I'll make it as large as necessary in Word, and I'll paste it in. I think we can see it there. So I'm going to come back to that momentarily. Go back to my design. Now I didn't name the text boxes. You notice I have text box 1, text box 2, and text box 3. For this example, I'm not going to name them, but please note, text boxes that you're going to use in code, you should always name. As an example, maybe this one would be first name text box, second name text box, quantity text box, whatever, you know, anything like that. But for this one, you'll understand what's going on via that. All right, let me review the code, and then I'm going to code it. So I mentioned that the private sub, if you want information on what it does, go to my exit application, which is in youtube.com / Professor John Maloney. Okay, I explained that well there. And the end sub is also created automatically. You double click on the clear button from your design view, which is this view here. Okay, you double click here, and then that code at the top is created automatically, and this last line is automatic. So our code, what I did is only this. And out of this, the first 2 lines, I'm on word wrap, by the way, and I'll show you how to do that after. But so I started this one with a comment, which means I click the apostrophe key, and then I type the comment. This clear button clears all text boxes by using a for each next loop. Here's my actual code, just these little lines. So dim CTRL as control. That just means that when I type CTRL, it represents any control on the form, which is what I put this next comment to represent. So this is also not code, it's just a comment. Then I did my for each next loop. For each CTRL, remember this is my variable. in controls. That means out of any control on the form. Then I have to ask a question. I use an if condition for that. If type off, there's no spaces. So if type off, and I have to put my variable name, CTRL is text box. Then I enter CTRL dot text. Text is a property of a text box. What I want to do is clear the text property. I don't want to clear the name property. I want to clear only the text property. So control.text equals double quote, clears. And then the next goes through an iteration. It's looking for every possible text box on the form. Okay. Now I'm going to run it, and then we're going to close this one down, and I'm going to make it smaller first now. So that, and whoops, then select all of those. So I can move them now to the center, make it a little better. I'm going to put a text property on here. John Maloney's clear button using for each next loop. Okay, so I'm going to run it. Oh, I spelled Maloney. Don't even know my own name. Okay, so I'm going to run it. And I'm just going to type anything in those text boxes. I'll say John Maloney. John. Okay. If I click clear, all three are cleared out. Okay. I actually meant to put focus back here, so I'm going to show you how to do that real quick, and then it's over. Double click on clear. After the next, if I type the first text box, so text box 1 dot focus, that will now put focus on that first one. So let me run through it again. Jim, whatever. I'm Canadian. Whoops. Whoops. Okay, clear. Now it clears them, and you see the cursor is blinking in the first text box. And that is accomplished with text box 1.focus. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you start watching all my videos. Okay, hopefully they'll be great. Have a great day.